Hello everyone, it's me, Retrovin from Retro Duck. Today we're going to be starting a new review. This time we're going to be reviewing Ratchet and Clank, the Reimagining. Now let me tell you, I have a lot of interesting viewpoints on this game, and some of them might be controversial one way or the other. If you're a fan of the game, you won't like the review. If you hate the game, you also won't like the review. So prepare. Anyways, though, let's get on to the game. Also, before we carry on, I can't really show any of the movie footage or much of the cutscene footage, so just keep that in mind. Also, the version of this game that I'm playing is Ratchet, the Reimagining with the 60 FPS patch, so if it looks a bit different, that's why. Anyways, let's get on with the story while I play some gameplay, just so there's something you could see while I talk about it, at least. So the game starts off with Ratchet really wanting to meet the Galactic Rangers and become one of them. Luckily for him, there's a training course where he could basically prove himself to the Galactic Rangers. When he goes to the training course, Quark isn't really so impressed with Ratchet, and he actually basically pushes Ratchet away and says, "No, no, no, Ratchet, you cannot become a Galactic Ranger." So Ratchet becomes a little pussy boy and gets sad. You know, that's kind of the whole point of the story. Very bad story, as I will continue on. Also, kind of similar to the original game, Clank's in a factory. You know, he gets made and all that stuff, and he escapes the factory. For some reason, Nefarious is there, so it is quite a plot line, I will say. Quark betrays you at one point, but it doesn't really make sense, because it's just out of him being jealous of Ratchet. Eventually, he does become a Galactic Ranger later in the story, but it's literally just from him saving the place once, and then they're like, "You should make him a Ranger," which really doesn't make much sense. Overall, the story doesn't make sense, and it's probably the worst part of the game, to be honest, aside from maybe like some of the music and various other things, which we will be getting into soon. Don't you worry. I guess we should maybe focus more on the gameplay now, since we got that all done. So now that we got the really garbage story out of the way, and you know, that isn't really a controversial opinion, let's get on to the gameplay, which is, of course, the best part of any Ratchet game, but specifically for this one, it's the absolute best thing this game has to offer. So basically, gameplay-wise, you know, it's like any Ratchet game. You have your wrench swing, you have your jump, you have your Clank hover. Usually it's the helipack, like originally you get it, but later in the game you unlock the thruster pack. That shouldn't be too big of a spoiler since the original game also had that. You have your wrench throw, which honestly, if there's one thing I can pride the newer Ratchet games in doing, is making the wrench throw so much smoother. I know I missed the crouch teabag too that you can do in the multiplayer, but this is cool as well. The weapon selection's pretty good. You have your bomb weapon, where you can blow stuff up. You have your Predator missiles, which, you know, again, most of these weapons are from the older games, by the way, so it's mainly an all-star cast. You have the heavy bouncer. I probably shouldn't mention that, because that is not a weapon you can actually use in most people can use in the game, because it is a pre-order bonus. Zircons, but yeah, there's the bouncer for pre-order people. The Levacerator, or the Pyrocitor, which is basically just the Pyroblaster. It's not even really the Pyrocitor, just a little nitpick there. Yeah, the Groovatron, which makes everything dance. That's pretty self-explanatory. Everybody knows what that is. The Combustor, they basically use it in every game, which is pretty bland. This is just me nitpicking, by the way. This isn't like a major part of the review. You also got the Pixelizer, which is a really creative new weapon that I'm happy they added. Oh. You have the Glove of Doom, which, out of all the weapons, the Glove of Doom was always my favorite. I always preferred it to Mr. Zircon, even, just because of how cool it was with them attacking the enemies. My personal favorite weapon ever, the Buzz Blade, which, you know, the little blades you get to shoot out, so that's cool. The Sheepinator, another all-star weapon. The Warmonger. And the last weapon, let me go get ammo for it so I can show it off. The Proton Drum, which is the second new weapon. The weapon's actually very powerful, surprisingly, too, so just another thing to note. So, with the major gameplay out of the way, I guess we can discuss just various other aspects of the game, like planet environments and stuff. I should probably also discuss the gadgets too. So basically, you have your grind boots, you have your magna boots. The grind boots you can use to grind on rails. The magna boots, magnetic boots where you can walk on like little special pads that'll let you go anti-gravity. The hydro pack, which basically lets you swim underwater. The heli pack and the thruster pack, which I mentioned before. The jet pack, which it looks a lot like the thruster pack, but it's a bit different because instead of it just hovering you, it actually lets you float in the air. The hoverboard, which you use for the races. The trespasser, which you use to hack into locks and everything. Basically your main hacking gadget. The hydro displacer, which lifts up water and lowers it, mainly used for small things like that. And the O2 mask, which lets you breathe underwater. That kind of goes with the hydro pack a little bit. And the Map-O-Matic, which is basically just, you know, it lets you locate gold bolts and secret stuff, so there's not much to it. And the rest of it's like, the swing shot, the Omni Wrench, the Gadgetbot Transformer, and all that stuff. Pretty good selection of gadgets and a pretty good selection of weapons, so in that way, I actually don't think it's really that bad. It has one of the, I'd say, best weapon selections, honestly. And if that's one thing I could say for the game, that would be it. In terms of environments, the worlds are also quite varied. They're mainly taken from Ratchet 1, so I guess you could say point lost in terms of creativity. But I do enjoy the environments, and the way they remade a lot of the planets are actually really nice. And I would argue, and this is probably controversial, because I know a lot of people like the environments in Ratchet 1, but I like the way they've updated some of the planets. The only one I really didn't like was Skid McMarks, where they made the secret base basically just a sports shack. But like looking past stuff like that, aside from that, it really has a good amount of environments and a nice variety in my personal opinion. And you can go to places like Iridia, Okratara, which had all the which I think had the best upgrade of all the planets in this game, mainly because like I love tropical areas and the fact that they made kind of like a tropical beach looking level a lot more beautiful, mainly because of the HD graphics and the water. Like this kind of level is perfect for that kind of graphical upgrade, because I will admit I do prefer it to the PS2 version. Even the music, I even prefer the music in this place, but I'll digress because that doesn't really count for most of the planets. The water graphics are definitely a very good example of like what they did well with this game, because graphically the game is very beautiful, and I think that's its strong point. Which you'd hope so, because at the current time of recording and uploading, it is the most recent Ratchet and Clank that's come out, and stuff like the water graphics, especially in Pokatara, just looks so beautiful. The last example of levels you'll see is something like Battalia, because Battalia, with some other planets, actually mix together. They have examples like Quartu and Orxon, for example, mixing together as like the toxic, polluted worlds, or I think there's like a spaceship section, the Planetizer, which is a mix of Drex Fleet, Gemlik Base, and other stuff. This one specifically is a mix of Battalia and Hoven, because to mention some of the disappointing stuff, they actually removed some planets from this game, which I can't defend at all, because that's ridiculous. Even though technically you can argue that they're mixing some planets like this and other ones together, you're still removing like levels as a whole. So there's not like a rainy Hoven or anything like that to be seen in the game. So that's like a whole thing missing, which is ridiculous. I don't personally like that, and I get that Insomniac was rushed, but there's no excuse for what is supposed to be the superior version having levels missing. With that said, though, I do like this version of Battalia with the snow. Maybe not as much as the rain, but it does look quite beautiful for what it is. Grind rails aren't too bad in this game. The only complaint I really have is certain things like the helpful things that they try to add, which I get it. There's newer players, but I don't like that there's like a little square near things you have to hit, or it tells you, oh, you need to, press the L and X button to, like move from rail to avoid a thing. Most players know how to do that, unless you're like super new. That's already known knowledge. I also don't like the little side effect where it like I know they're trying to make it look like Ratchet's going like at super high speed with this, but it's just like a really distracting effect to have like that weird side effect where it's all like wavy and I don't know, it's like weird white, like kind of I don't know, like kind of rainy looking. I just don't like it. It doesn't fit the section at all, really. And I wish they would have removed. This game has a lot of really cool extras. So within the extras, which I don't have unlocked right now currently, so I can't really show them off. I can say what they are. They have like art galleries, so you can have like characters, weapons, environments. These are for like concept art for things like that. They even have like the original Ratchet and Clank if you beat the game. That's like a extra you get. Appearance settings, so you can have stuff like screen filters, so you can change like the way the screen looks. You have the bolt style. You can actually like change the way the bolts look. You can change Ratchet's head mask. Not as cool as skins, but I'm happy they have something like that. They have the Ranger armor paint, so you can change your ship. Sorry, the armor. There's the ship one, the Ranger ship paint, and then the hide HUD. I don't really care about that one. I'm surprised that one's like so high up in terms of the amount of gold bolts that cost. And cheats. You can change the game speed to fast. When the game wasn't at 60 FPS, I used to think fast was like the closest thing we'd ever get to 60 FPS. Funny enough, infinite ammo. You can like increase your ammo to everything, and invincibility. You obviously know what that is. The last extras we'll mention, like, or before we get to the last extras, we'll mention there's also a big card system. So throughout the game, you'll be collecting holo cards, and they don't really do much themselves, but there are Rhino holo cards they want to collect throughout the game because the Rhino cards will actually get you the game's Rhino, which is actually pretty clever because it's almost like the holo plans technically. Those are all the main features I really have to mention. The last thing I'm about to get to before we mention like music and everything will be the Insomniac Museum. So unlike most Insomniac museums, within this Insomniac Museum, you actually gradually unlock parts of it, which is different. Now, I'm going to be honest, this isn't really a hot take because most people probably agree. This Insomniac Museum is kind of shit. Basically, it just has a bunch of junks from other Ratchet games I'd rather be playing and reviewing, but I can't. That's literally it. It's just straight up a museum. They just threw objects from the older games in it rather than having the clever and witty developer commentary actually talking about the stuff you can do. So, sadly, that kind of sucks. Because it's just that. It's not terrible, like, it's cool seeing all the older stuff, but it would have been nice to, like, hear from the developers what they had to say about it. Alright, I promise this is the last thing I'm going to mention before we get onto the music. Because since this is a pretty important thing, I want to mention the weapon upgrading, which, not just the weapon upgrading, but the weapon wheels you can use with Raritanium. Basically, in the game, you can actually use Raritanium to, not upgrade through experience, but, like, upgrade different parts of your weapon without just regularly upgrading them through this little weapon tree, which is actually very addicting to do, and probably one of the greatest things that have ever been added into the Ratchet series, because I love being able to just, upgrade my weapons like this through a little weapon wheel that, lets you get all this stuff. So yeah, I'd say it works really well. I'm happy they brought it back from Into the Nexus, because it's only been in 2 other games. They've only had it in Tools of Destruction and Nexus, so that's a nice thing to see return. Anyways, though, here's some of the tracks that I really like in the game. There aren't a ton of them, because most of the tracks in the game are pretty bland. But if there were some I could say I really liked, here are some that, like 3 examples of ones that sound really good in my personal opinion. Anyways, that's about it for my review, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, if you guys have any game recommendations of other games you want me to review, let me know, because I'd love to try different games you want me to see. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this review of Ratchet and Clank. I'd say it's a pretty okay game. It's definitely not my favorite, but like in the Ratchet series, to me, it's probably in the middle. So not a bad game for sure. Like it's a good game, especially gameplay wise. But like in most aspects, it's kind of a meh game. But anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'm out. Peace.